Good morning, Boquete. Good morning, Cherokee. Good morning, Veronica down in David, and good morning, Bolivar, our engineer here. You're listening to Boquete Now, talk radio on Radio Cherokee 103.3 FM, sponsored by Big Daddy's Grill and the ACCB. We have a great show for you today. I'm welcoming back recurring guest, First Sergeant Dan Gallagher, USMC retired, who's also a retired therapist, having worked many years
Yes.
in various different capacities, and he's a wealth of knowledge. And I'm really, really happy he has decided to come join us today. Welcome to the show again, Dan.
Thank you very much. I enjoy it.
Yeah, you know, this is one of those times where I wish we had like a 2-hour show. You know, there's so much to talk about, and these subjects don't usually come up on this type of a radio program. So I'm really happy that we're going to get a chance to discuss things. I know that your expertise lies in areas of PTSD, suicide prevention, most of the D5 level mental illnesses. But I know that for today, and we're going to talk about that a little.
Right.
But we want to cover something though that is very important. And those are panic disorders, panic attacks. I think a lot of people don't understand what they are. You know, they think someone's just overreacting,
Absolutely.
and it's not. It's a legitimate condition. So, how does someone get to where they have this situation, and what can you do for them?
So, DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, it's used by all therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists to determine that you have the criteria for a certain illness.
Mm-hmm.
Panic attacks and panic disorder is part of the DSM-5. What panic attacks are, the reasons for them are unknown. There are some considerations, certainly sexual abuse, some form of robbery, assault, changes in hormones, a serious accident. Certainly people who have PTSD from wartime experiences can have panic attacks. All of these things, any type of loss, can trigger a panic attack. It's that simple. A panic attack is a terrible thing. It's a wave. It's considered a wave of fear characterized by the unexpectedness and debilitating, immobilizing intensity. You have heart pounding, can't breathe, feeling of dying, or going crazy. A lot of times when somebody has this, wherever they're having it, no set place, you want to strike out and get away from the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with that is you might be in your car, you might be in a restaurant, you might be in a movie theater, you might feel that you just have to sit with it and not share this with anything. It's absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah, and you know the thing of it is there's still a stigma with any mental illness.
Absolutely.
You know, and what strikes me as logical is if you hurt yourself physically, you know, if you sprain your ankle, you know, if you break your arm or whatever, you're not going to be ashamed to tell someone, oh, I broke my arm, or I sprained my ankle, you know, or I have a stomach ache. And you're going to share that with people without worrying about getting any kind of negative feedback. You're going to go to a doctor.
Absolutely.
You may even put something on social media. Hey, you know, I hurt my ankle. Do you know a good orthopedist, right? But when someone is suffering from a mental illness, there's still that stigma, that shame behind it, where, you know, they think a lot of people are there's judgment there, there's condemnation, there's misunderstanding, and that doesn't really help. It definitely doesn't help at all if you're having a panic attack and someone just blows you off and says, oh, you're just overreacting.
Absolutely. Even your family will look at this as, they'll one or two things happen. Either they think that this is something you should just be able to control, or they won't understand it and they'll simply withdraw from you. Friends and neighbors will do that too. There are a lot of times I've run support groups for people with panic attacks, panic disorder, The difference between panic attacks and panic disorder is simply that if you have one or more panic attacks, and after the panic attack is finished, you spend at least a month worrying about having another one, that basically qualifies you as having a panic disorder. And support groups, talking to a reality therapist, which I've been, finding a way to share how you feel with family, finding somebody who has knowledge of this, an expert in the field, who would then do family therapy to
Sure.
explain to them that you've done absolutely nothing wrong. There's no clear unfortunately, there's no clear trigger. With PTSD, you can do training, avoidance of the area, avoidance of a certain time, a certain smell, all of these things. But with this, there's no clear trigger.
Yeah.
And
Could be anything.
of anything. That makes it even more difficult. You can have one or two of these in a lifetime, or some people, they can be triggered on a monthly or a bi-weekly basis.
Yeah.
Those are the most severe. Most people have one or two of them in a lifetime.
Yeah. So what if you are with somebody, maybe you're out to dinner, right? Maybe like you said, you're in a movie theater, or you're a passenger in a car or whatever, and somebody experiences a panic attack. What's the best thing for you to do for them at that moment?
Whoever the partner is to talk quietly, to explain to them where they are and what's happening to them, to tell them that they'll stay with them until this is
Passes,
over,
yeah.
even though they might not understand. It might be the first time the other person in the person's life has witnessed something like this, and it's very scary. Sometimes this happens around a person's children. Just stay there, talk slowly. If they'll accept you holding their hand, that's absolutely fine. If they shy away from it, it's probably because they're in such an extreme moment of attack. But let them know that you're there. Tell them to breathe slowly until this is finished. That they're not going to have a heart attack. It's if you are a partner of somebody who's had a heart attack, do the research. Understand that this is a temporary situation. Prozac, Paxotine do work to help this. They're a daily dosage, and there is, but what you really have to do is just understand that your symptoms are not life-threatening.
Sure.
That you will get out of it and be fine.
Now, what are, speaking of symptoms, if you're with someone that has a panic attack and you've never experienced, you've never witnessed that before. I know you mentioned shortness of breath and whatnot, but are those, I guess, for the lack of a better word, are those like standard symptoms of someone having a panic attack? Because if someone's having something else that's similar to that, obviously you're going to want to get an ambulance involved and whatnot.
Right. No, these are pretty specific to panic attacks. For everybody, lack of heart rate goes up, it increases, breathing increases, muscles become tense, mind thinks of fearful thoughts. Fight or flight is unfortunately the flight part is a major part of this, and the best thing you can do is stay where you are until the attack. If you're in your car, pull over, obviously, but stay where you are. The attack will only last usually for a few minutes, and it will be over. You'll be extremely exhausted. If it's your first attack, you won't understand what's happened to you. You might believe that you had a heart attack and have to go to the doctors, but usually you come back as good as before you had the attack.
Well, it's important information, because I'm guessing a lot of the people that have panic attacks don't have the benefit of having somebody with them,
Right.
someone to walk them through it,
Right.
or to
Right.
to make sure that they're gonna be okay. And I guess if it's your first one, or maybe your first couple, it's really important to know what to do. I mean, it might even be a good idea to keep a little index card around.
Absolutely,
by your bed or somewhere where you're going to be a lot, just to maybe remind you. So I don't know how that works, but I do know that it's a real thing. I mean,
Yes.
it's a real
Yes.
issue. It's a real disorder, and for people to not give it the respect that it's due and not acknowledge it, and again just say, "Oh, you're overreacting. Calm down." I mean, telling someone who's having a panic attack to calm down is kind of useless.
Yeah, you really, if you witness a panic attack by somebody you really, it's going to scare you also. It's the person having a panic attack goes into a mind of fearful thoughts. It's to me, being from the Marine Corps, I would view it as almost feeling like you're in a war and someone's attacking you. And so you see all these symptoms very quickly happening. You see this person doing it. You're there trying to ask them if they need help. What's wrong? Are you having a heart attack? But the person will just go through this period. If you stay with them shortly, the person will come out of it and it'll stop. And luckily, as I say, for most people, one or two of these in their lifetime will be all they'll have.
Yeah.
There are some reasons for it. You can have a person that gets this, kind of believes if you have depression, anxiety, some of the symptoms, obviously I've mentioned feeling of, being assaulted in robbery, sexually abused, all of these things are contributing factors to people having a panic attack.
So is it safe to say, and again, I'm a layman, this is not my wheelhouse, if someone has experienced in their past any kind of trauma, like you said, whether it be a robbery or assault or
Right.
molestation or extreme loss,
Right.
if this happened, a lot of times this happens when people are well into their adulthood.
Yes.
But I know there's a lot of people out there that have had trauma in their childhood and they're growing
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Now, as panic attacks related to, or is it what I'm trying to ask, is it related to, or is it a manifestation of PTSD?
It's very similar to PTSD. People who had PTSD can start having panic attacks. It's not understood as well as it should be. I'm sure there's new research coming out all the time. I would think that people who have PTSD could have it, but it's such a rare thing to have a panic attack that doctors and scientists haven't pinpointed an exact cause. We know that people who think negatively an awful lot of the time, who've been in therapy, who have depression, can have them. Luckily, they're probably already on a medication that helps and could reduce the panic attack. But it appears to be singular to the person, and doing things to help yourself, learning deep breathing techniques, staying where you are. It can also be accompanied, a lot like PTSD, with smell, and which is a good thing. You can, once you're in a panic attack, start thinking about what surrounds you. If you're outside, then think about the sunny day, think about the birds chirping, think about relaxing your breathing, think about the smells you witness, think about other things that will start reducing this attack.
It's like self-calming.
Self-calming,
Yeah.
absolutely self-calming.
You almost wish that there would be another phrase or another definition.
Yes.
Panic attack sounds like a punk rock band from the '80s.
Yes.
And it's hard to take that seriously. If you're not familiar at all with mental illness or PTSD or any of that. You hear panic attack and you think, well, they're just panicking. Don't panic, because
Right.
when you get overwhelmed, the first thing people tell you is don't panic.
Exactly.
You know, and then when you're having a panic attack, someone telling you don't panic,
Right.
well, you know, thanks, appreciate the advice,
No,
but this
right.
is not something that I'm able to control.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, just best thing I can tell you is so for my patients, Paxil and Paxatine, which are the same thing, helped an awful lot. Um, if you're in a panic attack, do not fight it. Definitely stay where you are if possible. Breathe slowly and deeply. Remind yourself that the attack will pass. I mean, the first one is very difficult because you don't know that. You don't know that it'll pass.
Yeah.
But after that, unfortunately, if you get a second one, you know all these things. Focus on the positive. Um, be peaceful and use relaxation images, relaxing images. That's the best thing you can do while you're in a panic attack.
And you know, it wouldn't make sense, you know, in maybe not high school. It might not be a bad idea in high school because not everybody goes to college. You know, do you remember back in the day they had health classes?
Yes.
Right. They don't do that anymore. But you know, the health classes, you know, they covered a variety of minor things.
Right.
You know, sometimes the more well-funded schools, you know, did first aid and CPR, but we live in an age now where there are so many sources of triggers. We've got social media, which
Yes.
is a huge influence
Right.
on people. You know, we spend hours a day on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that, and you know, we're subject to a lot of negativity, and we're subject to a lot of just very negative comments. You know, things that can set you
Absolutely.
off. And I know that you know, the whole field of childhood abuse, complex PTSD, CPTSD is relatively new field of study. So you know, when you take all that into consideration, right, a lot more people went through abuse as very young than was
Absolutely.
previously thought. Plus, you add, you know, social media to it. Wouldn't it be a good idea for the public schools, say maybe in 11th or 12th grade, your last year or two, when you were, you know, 17, 16, 17 years old, to have this information available, you know, to people, just basic. Obviously, you're not going to want to give someone a crash course in being a mental health expert, but you know, these things might happen to you if you had experienced this, you know, or at least maybe some resources and phone numbers, because I can't even imagine, Dan, what it would be like if I had no idea this was a thing,
Right.
and then I find myself, you know, I would freak me out. I would think I was dying. I was thinking, you know, that's what's gonna happen, and it
Absolutely.
only makes it worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, that would help. But we ran programs in Massachusetts for kids that were abandoned or abused by their family and couldn't go back to them. And one of the things we did is kind of like what you're saying is, you know, we set them up with therapy. But the other thing we did is we had a laminated card with
yeah.
everything on it that was in whatever community they were, Fall River, places in Massachusetts.
Sure.
And on it had places to food, distribute food places, mental health, many things were on it. One of the things I taught my teenagers, who were usually all gang related, is mindfulness, relaxation techniques, breathing techniques. I went to UMass medical school to learn, be certified in mindfulness. Here you've got people that are certified in yoga. That would be a good thing. It teaches you breathing.
Relaxation, yeah.
Right, so very quickly, if you're in a panic attack, you can use that after a couple of minutes of the knowledge of it. You can use the training in yoga to do it. You mentioned the type of thing the world is now. One of the most interesting facts is COVID. So COVID, when you have COVID, you have some of the similar things that you would have with panic attack.
Difficulty breathing. Wow, you didn't even think about that.
Right, tightness, pressure in the chest. Obviously, you feel somewhat panicked by this.
Yeah.
So COVID actually simulates some of the things you would have with a panic attack. So now scientists and doctors are starting to study, is that going to stimulate more people who will have a panic attack? I think isolation brings on an awful lot of this. I talked on Dr. Shannon's radio show about
That was a great
isolation.
show, by the way.
Thank you. About isolation and the things you can do to avoid just becoming more and more isolated to a point where you basically have treated people that couldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you don't want to get to that point. So all of these things that you would do in the community would help. It would be great to have a group who have had similar experiences with panic attacks or PTSD. I'll give my number. I would be more than happy at no cost to do this. Again, I'm not licensed in Panama. I am in the States, so more than happy to do this. My name is Daniel Gallagher. My number is 6440-1503. I'm sorry, 6440-1503. My tongue is getting too big. So if you wanted to do something about this, I think the biggest thing about panic attacks is people live in isolation because they don't want others to know. If you came here with your significant other, I'm sure they know. But outside of that, you don't want other people to know. As Al said, the stigma, and that can be a problem. It's a self-isolating problem. So going out and being part of the community is really important.
Yeah.
Have friends that understand that occasionally that you've had this, and you may not never have it again in your life, but it's not a heart attack, it's other things.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult because it looks like a heart attack when it stops.
Well, it's like I've had years ago. I had a hiatal hernia,
Right,
and that when that acts up,
right.
it feels like a heart attack too.
Absolutely.
And I remember I was at work one day. This is in Florida, in Pompano Beach, for all you Floridians out there. Shout out. I was sitting in my chair, and I got I didn't know I had this. I had no
Right.
idea I had a
Right.
hiatal hernia, and I thought I was having a heart attack, and it scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
And I couldn't breathe. It was a horrible chest pain, and I guess panicked
Yes.
so bad that I passed out. I
Wow.
fell. The chair went back. I fell on the floor, and of course, at that point, all my coworkers come running over and etc. And there was a wife. One of my coworkers was a wife of a physician, and she called her husband.
Very
This
good.
is secondhand. I
Right.
was out, and they told me to get down to the hospital there in Fort Lauderdale, and they
Yes.
said, yeah, they did a test or whatever. But yeah, there are several things I guess that can mimic that. But it's interesting, and I know I keep coming back to the stigma thing, and the only reason why I do is because I really don't understand the logic behind that. If you get into an accident, right? You get into a car accident, and it's a pretty severe accident, right?
Right.
And you break both of your legs, okay? Not only are you going to go to the doctor, obviously, and have that taken care of, but you're going to have physical therapy.
Absolutely.
Probably for months, you're going to have physical therapy to learn to build your muscle control, to learn how to walk again, and to heal. Therapy is the same thing, and a lot of people, more people now are comfortable with telling people, yeah, I'm in therapy, or they talk about my therapist, but it still has that stigma.
Absolutely.
Why are you embarrassed? Why is there embarrassment and shame attached to wanting to heal yourself, wanting to be better mentally? You do it physically, and there's no shame in that. Do you have any insight into that? I know it's off topic, and I didn't mean to throw you a monkey wrench into that, but it's why is there so much of a stigma attached to this? Why are we so embarrassed about it?
I don't think it's off going off to another direction. I think that's a very strong part of it. I think most people that have depression, anxiety, PTSD, panic attack, multiple things, hide it from even their family. They will simply say that a husband will say, I'm going to play cards with my friends, or I'm going to go golfing or something, and actually be going to see a psychiatrist and therapist. They will hide their medication. There still is this damn belief that you can control how you feel. You're not strong enough to stop the PTSD or the depression or the anxiety. This feeling that you're not in control of your mind seems to bother an awful lot of the past generation and some of this generation too. I'm gonna be 75 in November, and I've done more family therapy because an individual in that family is having a panic attack or depression or anxiety, and trying to help them understand that it has nothing to do with mental weakness. It just simply is a series of events that have happened in your life that then stimulate your brain to feel a certain way, to get anxiety until you understand how to control it, or you're using medication or PTSD or any of these things. And this can happen to any of us. You mentioned the a severe accident, a car accident, which can happen. Yes, and this person will heal all the bones, but then there's avoidance that goes with it. I don't
Sure.
want to get in a car again.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
drive again.
Well, you mentioned weakness, and that's that's the word I was actually hoping you'd bring up, because especially with men, women are in my experience anyway, are very a lot more willing than men are, to admit that they're struggling with something. They're way better communicators, than we are. They'll get a group of girlfriends together and they'll talk about how they're feeling, and they'll discuss just about anything. But us guys get together, and it's usually talking about sports or or something, and we don't want to appear to be weak.
No.
Especially amongst other males.
Absolutely.
'Cause you don't have to be a grown man. This can happen to children too. And really, we have been, as men, as males, we have been conditioned for many, many generations to hide your feelings. Don't cry.
Right.
Don't show any emotion.
Right.
It's a sign of weakness, and power through it and all that stuff. And I think that does a disservice. If a man has a panic attack, there's a pretty good chance that he's never going to tell anybody.
Absolutely. And to be perfectly honest, you mentioned that women are, in my experience, and I know I spent a lot of time just men in the Marine Corps, but after that, 22 years of being a therapist, working with pretty much all women, I think they're stronger than we are.
Oh,
I think they're
yeah,
stronger
well.
emotionally. I think they're smarter.
We don't like to admit that, but yeah.
Yeah. I think they're smarter than we are, because instead of getting in trouble in isolation, they turn to their friends. They turn to coworkers. Now they use investigative tactics to try to figure out what's wrong with them. I caution that the internet is a place of many opinions.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But not much intelligence. So be very
Excuse me.
Right. Be very careful when you do that. And when you feel that you can't get control of something, then work with a mental health person. There are so many groups for so many things that can happen. But you mentioned a car accident. That can trigger, certainly trigger PTSD symptoms, but also trigger panic attacks.
Yeah.
Getting anywhere near that car, that kind of stimulation can do it. When you mentioned women, there is studies that show that changes in hormones can bring on panic attacks.
Sure, like menopause. And,
It can happen.
Yeah, like that.
It can
yeah.
bring on panic attacks. Genetics, we don't know why, but that is a clear indicator of major stress disorders and also panic attacks, PTSD, things like that.
Now, is there a how our minds work as
Yes.
as guys? We're always trying
Yes.
to fix everything, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
which usually is the worst thing to do, but
With women, yes.
with especially with women,
Yes.
yeah, we feel the need to fix things,
Yes.
and it could get very frustrating, but because of that mindset, is there, and because of that mindset, and because we don't like to share our feelings or let anybody know that we're struggling. In my mind, I'm looking at a progression, right? So, okay, you have a trauma,
Yes,
which triggers PTSD,
can, yes.
which can trigger
Yes.
PTSD, which can trigger panic attacks.
Anxiety first,
Anxiety
and then
first.
everything else afterwards.
Would it be a logical statement to say that that could eventually lead to um, suicidal ideations,
Yes.
or whatnot?
That's an excellent point, and part of the end of this discussion could be yes. Certainly, panic attacks, multiple panic attacks, will lead people to think about suicide. Absolutely, they don't want to continue to go through this. PTSD is the same thing. Suicide is, to them, a logical option. Most people that go through this and see a physician have sleep disorders, so they have the medication to decide to end their life. Absolutely, people with panic attacks or PTSD tend to use alcohol or other forms of self-medicating, which is absolutely wrong and actually clouds over your feelings to a point where the next time you have PTSD or a panic attack, it's going to be much stronger.
Yeah.
So that's not an option. Men, I've had through veterans or non-veterans, I've done groups. The best thing for men, they hesitate to see an individual therapist until it gets too bad. They are better at going to groups that are anonymous, that then they don't have to share with coworkers. They share with people who have had the same thing. Most people will simply sit there and hear all of the things they're going through, and by the second session or the third session,
They might contribute.
they're contributing.
Yeah.
So as with AA and NA, that's one of the important elements that we have in our society. I wish I could say we have more here. It's a small community, but it would be very easy to set up these type of groups. We've done it with the veterans BVO that I was on their board. We've done some things with that were excellent. Because of COVID, I'm no longer on the board and don't know if that's still going on.
Yeah.
But my suggestion here is see Dr. Shannon or any doctor here. If
Any
you
doctor,
think
yeah.
you're having these anxieties or these feelings of negativity that won't go away, they can prescribe for you. Then think about creating a group. You can help yourself and help other people.
Well, and that comes back to the stigma, you know.
right.
You're not, and again, you know, you go to a doctor's office and you're sitting in the waiting room with 20 other people.
Right.
You're not embarrassed to be in the doctor's office.
Right.
You know, so why should you be embarrassed, you know, sitting in a mental health, situation?
Right.
But, you know, I know, and like I said, I wish that we had more time.
That's okay.
But
I'll come back again.
yeah, well, absolutely. You're always welcome back on the show,
Thank you.
Dan. I wanted to touch on, since we're talking about mental health and stigmas in general with mental health, there seems to be a reluctance with a lot of people to, they may go and see someone and say, okay, I'm having this problem, and the therapist will say, all right, yes, you have this problem. Let me prescribe for you or recommend, this medication. You mentioned Paxil.
Paxitine.
The other one was
Paxitine. There are actually
Xanax.
Xanax. There are actually many that work.
But
Yeah,
then,
Xanax is a
but
good
then
one.
there's an aversion to that. I don't want to take any medication. I know that in severe cases, when you're confined to a facility, you might need very, very strong drugs to basically knock you out.
Right.
But in a normal situation, well, normal is probably a bad word, but in a common situation where someone's suffering from anxiety or panic disorder or PTSD, is there any reason why refusing to take a medication would be valid?
No, not at all. And you mentioned normal. You characterized it as not a good word. I disagree with you because
Okay.
when people are going through forms of depression, what is normal for them, what's happened is it's now not normal. They don't feel the same way. It's almost like the happiness left their body. The feeling of closeness to people left them. So their feeling of normal is no longer there. Here it's much simpler. If I am, when I worked as a therapist, psychologist, for some of the different types of organizations, somebody would come in describing a level of depression, not severe, but a level of depression. They would have to see me for 6 weeks before I would then go with them to a psychiatrist to prescribe medication.
Prescribed medication. Yeah.
Because in the States, there's a lot of seeking medications to fix what you can fix yourself.
Right.
So instead of being adverse to medication, most people want to get it. The problem in the States is a physician, a primary care physician, will sometimes feel they get about 20 hours on psychotropic drugs. A therapist, like myself, spends a semester on it. They will feel that they can prescribe. And that's okay because they usually do it in low doses, and if things get worse, then they decide this for a mental health
Right.
official.
Sure.
Here you can go to somebody, and I know there is a lot of doctors, and you can mention a couple of others. I happen to be use Dr. Shannon. Here you can go to Dr. Shannon, describe your symptoms. She has training here. The nice thing about being in this country is most doctors here have multiple training in different areas.
Sure.
And mental health is one of them. They can go and help you. They can give you medication. You can see them on a very low dose, describing your symptoms. And then if it's not working, the next week they would give you a little higher.
And if you're having an adverse reaction, by all means,
Right.
go see your doctor,
Yes.
because stopping I know some of this medication, if you decide to stop on your
Yes.
own, has its own set of circumstances.
Very adverse effects.
And very
Yes.
adverse effects, yeah.
High dosages
Yeah.
cannot be stopped that way.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, I really do sympathize with people who are suffering that way, suffering with mental illnesses.
Yes.
There's no shame there. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's no reason why a person should feel uncomfortable, speaking with their friends, their close friends, their family, seeking help. If someone, and I've seen this happen, and this is actually, it actually makes me happy. Someone will come on to social media, usually Facebook, and they'll have the courage, right, to say, hey, look, I'm having this problem, and it may be in a private group or whatever, but they're still putting themselves out there, which may make them feel vulnerable. But a lot of the times they get compassion.
Yes.
They'll get advice,
Yes.
or they say, hey, it might not be a good idea to seek advice on social media, but I understand what you're feeling. Go see, a mental health professional or whatever. I see a lot of support, and I didn't see that even 5-10 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
And that's a really excellent point. Yes, you at times can get more sympathy and people that have similar issues on a site like, you have to be careful, but a site like Facebook, that you don't have to face your family.
Right.
Now, when you talk about stigma, here most of us are over 50. I'm going to be 75. Most of us here are over 60. And the stigma seems to end as we age.
Yeah.
We're very worried about it in our 30s and 40s. It could interfere with work. It could interfere with my career. It could interfere with my marriage. It could interfere with how my children think of me, my co-workers and friends. Here, we have a circle of friends that will understand better.
Yeah.
And help you. I think that's one of the most important elements here in Boquete is there are many people that you can turn to and choose that you've chosen as a friend who will understand and think about it and try to help you.
The whole process of aging isn't for the faint of heart.
No.
You say youth is wasted on the young.
Yes.
Yes. You start getting, to a point, most of us, as, we had, 60, 70, and we know our bodies kind of, rebel against us.
Yes.
All right. You have mobility problems.
Yes.
Sometimes you get forgetful. You can't really make any kind of a move without a grunt. Day and I were joking about that. Every time we get up from a chair, it's like, ugh,
Yes.
get up out of bed, move. There's always a little pain involved. So I think you get to a point where you learn to accept a lot more about your physical condition, and I think that probably translates a little bit about You know, we make jokes now about
Right.
being forgetful, right?
Right.
You know, there's memes out there. I forget stuff all the time.
Yes.
You know, most of us, you know, that are older do. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it. You know, we get to the point where like, you know what, I'm retired. I'm not going to lose my job.
Right.
My kids are grown.
Absolutely.
You know, what have I got to lose?
Absolutely.
You know, what have I got to lose?
That's
And
a great example.
I just wish that, you know, you wouldn't lose a job.
Mm.
You know, if you're in your 30s, you know, if you have to, okay, I need some time off. I need to take some time off. You know, you would do the same thing if you broke your leg. Hey, boss, I broke my leg. I'm going to be laid up for a couple of weeks. You know, hey, boss, I'm having these panic attacks. I need to take some time off to heal myself. The former, you'll get a medical excuse and you stay home and you heal. The latter, you lose your job.
You could.
You could lose your job.
The United States has effectively changed laws to prevent that, but that doesn't mean that your boss or owner doesn't find any other ways to be dissatisfied
back around
with you.
it, yeah.
Back around it. So yes, again we go back to stigma. I mean, I'm very happy that we're in Boquete because the stigma now leaves us.
Yeah.
If you are, you know, use too much alcohol or recreational drugs, and every time there's a party, you seem to be the one that goes overboard, there would be a stigma here. But just being a caring person who has some kind of issue, mental health issue here, you would get compassion and sympathy, I believe.
Yeah.
Certainly from myself and my friends, and you can avail yourself of the medication that will help you along the way. Facing this alone, sometimes medication, small doses of medication, psychotropic medications, help you then cope with your issue to a point where you can then stop taking the medication and deal with it on your own.
Like takes the edge off.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
No,
to-
that's
yes.
that's very important to know that. You know, there's several people that I have met here. You know that offer their services in areas, you know, that are maybe outside traditional psychiatry. Right. I mean,
Right.
you're a reality therapist, and even though you're retired. And don't
Right.
you know, don't sell your services.
Right.
You are still available.
Mindfulness is another
Yeah,
way to do it.
I had Celeste Mendelson on the show
Perfect.
a few
Right.
weeks ago or so. She's a yoga therapist. We
Absolutely.
had a great show,
Yes.
and she provides a service. There are life coaches. There are a lot of people here in this community that can offer help. You know, that you can go to and say, hey, I'm having and you know what? If they can't help you, they'll probably refer you to somebody else.
Absolutely. And yoga is an excellent way to calm your mind by calming your body. I think that's something excellent to think about going along with someone who has depression or anxiety. That would be a great way, and you meet other people that do the same thing. I think it's a great way. The one thing you can't do is isolate yourself and do this alone. It's impossible.
And that, you know, unfortunately, that's something that many people who are suffering, they'll turn to that. You know, maybe if I just don't put myself out there, you know, would be like the PTSD thing with the car accident.
Right.
You know, maybe if I never get in a car again, this will never happen to me.
Right.
But you know, isolating yourself, you know, shunning friends and family, I would imagine just exacerbates the problem.
Absolutely.
Makes it that much worse.
And going back to psychotropic.
You get lost in your own head, basically.
Right. And going back to psychotropic medications like Paxil and different things, at different times in my life, I've thought, because of what I dealt with very people that were suffering, and my military experience, I've needed a psychotropic medication to get me through things for a month or 2 months, or even up to 6 months. So I don't find any stigma to it. The same thing as if I take a pill because I have severe cold or the flu.
Yeah.
I think of it exactly the same way. And the privacy of a doctor and going into some place here with a primary care physician, everybody's there for different reasons, and nobody knows what they are. So it's very
Yeah.
easy
Yeah.
to help yourself.
Yeah. And you also have there's a within certain, I guess you would call them groups of people, but between the certain demographics, let's put it that way, there's an aversion to medication in general. There's an aversion to doctors. There's aversion to science.
There is. Oh yes.
There is. And you really, there's nothing much you can do. You can try to explain to some people, that this is a legit thing and you should go see a doctor. You should go on medication, but they're just not going to believe it.
The difference between this and determining that I'm going to use an example that you don't believe in the medication for COVID, is this is something that's dealing with your mind, and it will continue, and it will get worse. If you don't do something, whether it's yoga or medication, whatever you're going to do, your PTSD, your anxiety, every one of these things will get worse, not better.
Yeah, and that's, it's avoidable. And that's the thing that, if anyone's going to take anything away from this broadcast, is that the worsening is avoidable.
Yes.
You can. There's help out there. There's medication out there. There's people that you can talk to. You don't have to try to go through this, alone. Even if you're a single person living alone, there's help out there, and it's kind of like, if you know that you have I guess a compromised immune system, you're going to take measures to build that up. If it really is important that people understand that there's no shame in this, there's no stigma. If you're struggling with mental illness, if you're struggling with anxiety or PTSD or panic attacks, that there's a lot of people here that can help you, whether professionally or just someone to talk to.
Absolutely. It's in my opinion, it's one of the best places. Boquete is one of the best places on earth to get help.
It is. Bolivar, how much time we got left, my friend?
2 minutes.
We got 2 minutes. All right, so what I'm going to do is, when I don't know if a video was working or not, or if the show was recorded, but if it was, we're going to put your phone number with your blessing on that post-production thing, so people can get a hold of you. Again, you're not licensed here,
No.
but you are very experienced.
Yes.
You have multiple degrees,
Yes.
and you've done this for a long time, so you're a good person to talk to. And
all I ask is that if you do that, and I can help you, and think of dog camp and all those dogs that are there trying to help, and I ask that somebody donate a bag of dog food eventually to help them.
Sure.
That's my fee, so to speak.
So to speak, yeah. Well, you know what? There's the generosity in this community is amazing.
Yes.
So I don't think that would be an issue at all. And they sure do. They sure could use the help.
Yes.
We took a foster in
I
2 days
know.
ago and already adopted.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. He's going to live in Bocas del Toro.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we're driving him down to David on Monday so he
yeah.
can get his
Right.
his
Both of
ride to Almirante and then a panga ride over to the house there.
Both
so.
of my dogs came from dog camp, and they're beautiful.
Well, Dan, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
For coming on the show. I'm sure that we'll have you back soon.
I would like that.
You're one of our most popular guests.
Thank you.
On the show here.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, Veronica, down in David, the engineer down there in Bolivar, as usual, does a wonderful job here. You've been listening to Boquete Now Talk Radio on Radio Cherokee 103.3 FM. Our show is sponsored by Big Daddy's Grill and ACCB in Boquete. Next Friday we have Chris Young on the show.
Great guy.
And yeah, he's a wonderful guy, good friend of mine too, and he's a mensch, right? That's how
Right.
you say it. And we're going to be talking about a program that I'm sworn to secrecy.
Okay.
Okay, but he's got something that he's going to share with everybody that I think you're all going to be fascinated with. So.
And he's been wonderful in the community.
Yeah.
And we've needed help.
Yes, he has. Anyway, thank you very much for your time and attention. Paso buen dia, mi amigos, mi amigas, and we'll